When I found flirty DMs with her ex, she scoffed. "You should be grateful I even let you into my life." I stayed quiet. A week later, screenshots of those DMs were playing on a TV at her cousin's engagement party. You ever have one of those moments where the world just goes quiet? Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the other kind. The one you get in the split second after a car crash before the screaming starts. That was me last Tuesday, standing in the kitchen of the apartment I shared with my fiancée Anna, staring at her open laptop. She had asked me to check her email for a flight confirmation for a trip we were supposed to be taking. I'm not a snooper. I'm not the kind of guy who goes looking for trouble, but her Instagram DMs were right there on the screen, left open from a conversation she'd been having just minutes before. And the name at the top of the chat made my blood run cold. Mark, her ex. I know I should have closed it. I know I should have walked away. I didn't. I read it, and in the space of about 30 seconds, the entire 3-year foundation of my relationship turned to dust. It wasn't just a friendly chat. It was a detailed, ongoing emotional affair complete with pictures I wish I could unsee and plans for a future that did not include me. Are you sure you want to go through with this wedding? You could just leave him. Don't be silly. The wedding is half the fun. My parents are paying for everything. Think of the gifts. It's an investment. And what about me? Where do I fit in? You'll fit in wherever I want you to. He's gone half the time for work anyway. He'll never even know. Besides, he's lucky to have me. He knows he'd never be able to get a woman like me on his own. I kept scrolling. It went on for months. They were mocking me, my job, my friends. They were planning meetups. She had sent him a picture of the watch I had bought her for our anniversary with the caption, "Look at what my pathetic little provider bought me. You can wear it when we see each other next week." The world didn't just go quiet. It went silent. I felt nothing. No rage, no sadness, just a profound, chilling emptiness. I took out my phone and with a steady hand I took pictures of the entire conversation. Every single message, every single photo. I closed the laptop and went back to the living room. She was on the couch filing her nails, looking bored. "Find the email?" she asked, not even looking up. "Yeah," I said, my voice unnaturally calm. "Found it, and I found some other stuff too." She finally looked at me, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" I just held up my phone, the screen showing a close-up of her message, calling me her pathetic little provider. The color drained from her face. The nail file clattered to the floor. She knew, but the panic was immediately replaced by a breathtaking, arrogant defiance. She stood up, her chin held high, and scoffed. A real, actual scoff. "Wow," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "So, you went through my private messages. You know, you should be grateful I even let you into my life. A man like you with your background, you should be thanking me every day that a woman like me even gives you the time of day." And there it was. Not an apology, not a denial, just a pure, unadulterated statement of her own superiority. She believed she was so far above me that her betrayal was a gift, and my discovery of it was an inconvenience. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just stared at her, at this complete stranger who had been living in my home for 3 years. The quiet in my head was gone, replaced by a single, loud, clear thought. She wanted a show. She wanted to be the star. I was going to give her the performance of a lifetime. I stayed quiet. I just gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Then I walked into our bedroom and closed the door, leaving her standing there confident in her victory. She had no idea the war had just begun. Update 1. For the next week, I was the perfect, hollowed-out version of a fiancé. I was polite. I was distant. I slept on the couch, telling her I needed space to process my jealousy. She loved it. She saw my withdrawal not as a sign of my departure, but as a sign of her power. She thought she was punishing me, making me stew in my own insecurity. She would walk around the apartment with a smug, self-satisfied smirk, occasionally offering me a pitying look. "Are you still mad about that?" she asked a few days later, as if we were discussing a forgotten grocery item. "You need to get over it, babe. It was just talk." "You're right," I said, my voice flat. "I'm working on it." She had no idea what I was really working on. My nights after she went to bed were a flurry of quiet, methodical preparation. My target was not just her. My target was the entire ecosystem of entitlement that had created her. And the perfect stage for my performance was already on the calendar: her cousin Sophie's engagement party. Sophie was, if possible, even worse than Anna. She was the queen bee of their little hive, a woman so deeply convinced of her own superiority that she treated everyone around her as either a loyal subject or an inconvenient peasant. She and Anna were two sides of the same narcissistic coin, and their favorite pastime was sitting in judgment of others. I had been the butt of their jokes for years. My job as a firefighter was so blue-collar. My family was so normal it was weird. My hobbies were so basic. Sophie's fiancé, a decent but completely spineless guy named Tom, was from a wealthy family, and their engagement party was set to be the social event of their season. It was being held at a private high-tech event space downtown, a place I knew well. My old college roommate, a guy named Kevin, owned the company that had designed and installed their entire AV system. I called Kevin. I told him I had a bit of a personal project I was working on and I needed his help. I asked him about the AV setup at the venue. He told me everything was controlled by a central tablet, but that there was also a hardline connection for a laptop as a backup for slideshows and presentations. "Why do you ask?" he said. "I'm putting together a little surprise for the happy couple." I said, "A tribute video. Can you get me the admin password for the system?" He laughed. "For you, man, anything. Just don't burn the place down." He sent me the password a few minutes later. My plan was simple, brutal, and elegant. The centerpiece of any of these self-important parties was always the slideshow. A nauseating half-hour montage of carefully selected photos of the happy couple set to some sappy pop song. Sophie's mother, a woman who was even more self-aggrandizing than her daughter, was in charge of it. I spent the next few nights building my own slideshow. It started innocently enough. The first few minutes were the exact photos I knew they would use. Pictures of Sophie and Tom, of their families, of their recent trip to Italy. I downloaded them all from Sophie's social media. But then the slideshow took a sharp, ugly turn. I intercut the happy photos with the screenshots of Anna's messages with her ex. I used a simple, clean font to highlight the most damning lines. A picture of Sophie and Tom smiling on a gondola in Venice, followed by a black screen and the words, "He's pathetic, but he's a good provider." A picture of Anna and Sophie laughing at a family gathering, followed by a screenshot of their conversation where Sophie had replied to one of Anna's messages about her affair with, "Get it, girl? You deserve to have some fun. He'll never find out." I had found the smoking gun. Sophie wasn't just an enabler. She was a co-conspirator. She had known about the affair the entire time. She had encouraged it. The final part of my slideshow was the grand finale. I took the audio from a video Anna had posted on her Instagram story a few weeks ago. A video where she was drunkenly laughing with Sophie about how boring and predictable I was. I laid that audio over a slow-motion video of me proposing to Anna, a video her own father had taken. The sound of her mocking laughter paired with the image of me on one knee was absolutely devastating. I saved the final video file to a small discrete USB drive, a drive that was identical to the one I knew Sophie's mother would be using. The night of the party, I played my part. I was the quiet, supportive fiancé, a little distant. But there, Anna was in her element, pining and posing for photos, completely oblivious. I found Sophie's mother, a frazzled ball of nervous energy, fussing over the final details. "Oh, Mark, thank God you're here," she said. "Sophie's father was supposed to handle the slideshow, but he's completely useless. Can you just make sure this gets to the tech guy?" She handed me a USB drive. "Of course, Aunt Carol," I said with my most sincere, helpful smile. "I'll take care of it right now." I went to the back of the venue to the small tech booth overlooking the main room. I found the technician, a young kid who looked bored out of his mind. I handed him the USB drive from Sophie's mother. "This is the slideshow for tonight," I said. "But there's a problem. Mrs. Harrison said some of the files were corrupted. She gave me this new one just a minute ago. This is the one you need to play." I handed him my own identical USB drive. He just shrugged, made the swap, and went back to playing on his phone. I had just swapped out their highlight reel for a horror film, and the premiere was about to begin. The moment of truth came an hour later. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd of 200 self-important guests. Sophie's father, a man who loved the sound of his own voice more than anything in the world, took the stage to introduce the very special tribute his wife had put together. Anna and Sophie were sitting at the head table right in front of the massive wall-sized screen, their faces glowing with smug anticipation. They thought this was their moment of triumph, a public coronation of their own perfection. The video started just as I had designed it. The first few photos of Sophie and Tom appeared set to some sappy Ed Sheeran song. The crowd murmured in approval. Anna leaned over and whispered something to Sophie, and they both giggled. And then it happened. The music cut out. The screen went black, and then the first screenshot appeared. A massive high-definition image of Anna's text message. "It's an investment." A confused ripple went through the crowd. I could see Anna and Sophie lean forward, their smiles frozen, trying to process what they were seeing. The slideshow continued. A relentless, brutal rhythm of happy photos followed by ugly truths. A picture of the two of them on the beach followed by a screenshot of Sophie's message. "Get it, girl. He'll never find out." The murmuring in the room grew louder, turning from confusion to shock. People were pointing at the screen, then at Anna and Sophie, whose faces had gone from pale to a deep blotchy red. Then came the audio. The sound of Anna's drunken mocking laughter filled the silent room, overlaid on the heartbreakingly sincere image of me on one knee. "He's so boring, so predictable." That was it. The dam broke. Someone in the back of the room gasped. Sophie's fiancé, Tom, who had been staring at the screen with a look of numb disbelief, slowly stood up. He looked at Sophie, then at the screen, then back at Sophie. He didn't say a word. He just turned and walked out of the room. The chaos that erupted was absolute. Sophie let out a strangled animalistic scream. Anna was just frozen, her mouth open, her eyes wide with horror. Sophie's mother was frantically screaming at the tech booth to stop the video. But the kid, following my instructions, just let it play to the end. I didn't stick around to watch the rest. I had seen enough. I just quietly slipped out the back exit, got in my car, and drove away, the sounds of the implosion fading behind me. My phone started ringing before I was even out of the parking lot. It was Anna, I answered, putting her on speaker. The sound was pure, incoherent rage. "What did you do?" She shrieked, her voice sorrow with tears and fury. "You ruined everything. You ruined my cousin's engagement. You ruined my life." "No, Anna," I said, my voice as calm and steady as a surgeon's hand. "I didn't ruin anything. I just showed everyone the truth that you wrote in your own words. You and Sophie thought you were so clever, so far above everyone else. You thought I was a joke. Who's laughing now?" I hung up and blocked her number. My revenge wasn't just about exposing her. It was about exposing their entire toxic, entitled world. It was about holding up a mirror to their ugliness in a room full of their biggest fans. They wanted a show. I gave them one they would never forget. Final update. It's been a year. The fallout from the engagement party slideshow was by all accounts legendary. It wasn't just a scandal. It was a social extinction event. Tom Sophie's fiancé never came back. He called off the engagement the next day. His family, a quiet but powerful force in the city, was apparently horrified by the revelation of the kind of family they had almost married into. They not only supported his decision, but they also made a few quiet calls. Sophie's father, who had a number of business dealings with Tom's family, suddenly found his contracts being reviewed and his credit lines being pulled. His business, which had always been a house of cards, collapsed within 6 months. Sophie and Anna became social pariahs. They were unceremoniously kicked out of their circle of friends. No one wanted to be associated with the public humiliation or the sheer undeniable ugliness of their actions. They were toxic assets and they were liquidated. Their family imploded. The blame and recriminations were apparently brutal. Sophie blamed Anna for her affair. Anna blamed Sophie for encouraging it. Their parents blamed them both for destroying the family's reputation. The last I heard, the two cousins who had been inseparable their entire lives no longer speak to each other. Anna's life in particular has been a case study in karmic justice. After I left, she had nowhere to go. Her parents, facing their own financial and social ruin, were in no position to support her. The 10 guys she was so sure would be waiting in line were nowhere to be found. She was forced to get a real full-time job for the first time in her life. She is now working as a customer service representative for a cable company, a job where she gets to listen to angry people complain all day. As for me, I'm good. I moved out of that apartment and bought a small house on the other side of town. I focused on my work and on myself. I reconnected with the parts of my life I had let go of to appease her. I saw her once a few months ago. I was at a gas station filling up my truck. She pulled up to the pump opposite me. She was driving a beat-up 10-year-old sedan, a far cry from the luxury car I had once paid for. She looked tired. The arrogant, confident woman I had known was gone, replaced by someone who just looked worn down by life. Our eyes met across the pumps. There was no anger in her expression, just a kind of hollow, exhausted emptiness. She looked away first. My revenge was brutal. It was savage, and I don't regret a second of it. She and her cousin didn't just disrespect me. They held me in contempt. They saw me as a tool, a means to an end. They built their entire world on a foundation of lies and entitlement. I didn't just knock it down. I set it on fire, and I used their own words as the kindling. They wanted to be the stars of the show. I just made sure everyone saw the unedited director's cut. And it was a horror film.